I'm Michael Spencer, Director of Sales at MedTech Solutions. I'll be moderating today's webinar. I'm pleased to announce our partnership with Identity Automation, a longtime leader of identity access management tools. We originally reached out to IA when our clients started complaining about having to enter too many usernames and passwords to access their EHR system. It got to the point it was impacting productivity and causing frustration with the providers and staff. I'm sure you guys all know that story. It was also putting the organization at risk with users taking shortcuts or not logging off their workstations. Today, we will demonstrate how Identity Automation's single sign-on solution can make your users happy and help keep your system secure. We will also provide an overview of their other identity access management tools. Very quickly too, MedTech Solutions is a leading national healthcare cloud computing company with an exclusive focus in the healthcare industry. Our mission is to deliver innovation, technology solutions that improve the ability to provide patient care and support healthcare providers. MT does that providing a full menu of HIT services, including security and compliance solutions like those we'll be discussing today. I'm pleased to introduce Matt Bickel, who is the Partner Manager for Identity Automation. We've also got Michael Mara, Healthcare Strategic Sales Exec, Michael Jordan, Healthcare Strategic Sales Exec, and Eric Ebding, which is their Solutions Engineer. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, folks. This is Michael Mara with Identity Automation, and I do want to echo both Mac and Michael's gratitude for your time and attention today. We understand that you've got a lot of competing initiatives, and we appreciate you spending some of that time with us. I have been with the company for, in my current role, roughly 13 years, the last 2 of which has been with Identity Automation, who had acquired my previous company, Healthcast, if anybody's familiar with that name. So wanted to provide sort of a rough background in terms of who we are, where we came from, and where we are headed as an organization. So Identity Automation goes back quite a bit in terms of the technology world anyway. 2004, we were out there providing consulting services for implementing competitive IAM solutions, provisioning solutions, things like Novell, Computer Associates, and some other offerings that were out there in the market at that time. And in so doing, our founders had realized that every single time they left one of these projects, there was always these sort of gaps and holes in the solution that customers said, you know, we did what we were asked to do, but it'd be great if the solution actually did X, Y, and Z. And after hearing that message enough times, they started, thinking to themselves, hey, we could probably build a better mousetrap ourselves and provide a solution that really does become connective tissue between these systems who don't ordinarily talk to one another. And that's really how we got our start. So in 2009, began developing our own system and had the baseline product called Rapid Identity, which is still in use today, and that's our IAM flagship product out in 2010. And I think we took a significant leap forward in 2013 where we won the state of North Carolina. So every educational user, be it student, teacher, parent that needs to get into their system for education gets in through our system. So instantly we went from a company that was starting to get a few customers out there to one that didn't need to answer really many questions about scalability with 10,000 users accessing our system regularly. 2014 was also a big year for us in that we had formed a partnership with an equity company who had really given us the flexibility instead of trying to drive returns and really focus on the monetary aspect of things. They gave us enough capital and enough leeway to go out and do the things that we needed to do in order to scale up and grow the company, which led us down the enterprise path, opened up doors to acquisitions, 2 really important ones to help us round out our portfolio. 2FA is where our MFA, multi-factor authentication functionality comes in. And then 2018 is the company that myself and MJ, as well as Eric, came from, and that's called Healthcast, if anybody knows that name. And I'll explain a little bit more about that here on the next slide. Most recently, we've acquired another company called Onboard, which probably won't apply too much to these folks here on the call today due to the fact that they're in the education market. Healthcare, I mentioned that name, Healthcast, is where I had come up in terms of the SSO world, and that was actually founded back in 1996 with a similar story of a couple founders, one of whom was an orthopedic surgeon, the other was a technology professional. They were friends, and the orthopedic surgeon became increasingly frustrated at the number of different applications and resources he needed to access in order to provide care to his patients. So he got a little bit frustrated. They got to talking and said, you know what, we could probably start a company that does this and really aggregates, one access point for all the different resources you need to do your job as a provider. And that's really where our flagship product on that side of the house called Exact Access came from. So we've been acquired 2 years ago to really help push into healthcare from the identity automation side. We do have a pretty large customer base now. Several 100,000 users are logging in with our Tap and Go, our procs-based solution, and we were the first to pioneer that. Back in, I think, 2000, we had University of Colorado Health tapping in and out of a roaming terminal server session in healthcare, which back at that time was pretty far advanced. And so we've been making continuous investment in that, and it's still tailored for healthcare, and we continue to grow our reach. Exact Access, getting more into the sort of product mix on the healthcare side relative to single sign-on. Exact Access really has been our flagship. It was designed since day one to be a clinical workflow solution, really meant just for healthcare. Has a whole bunch of different functionality associated with it, some of it a bit tangential, EPCS, things of that nature. It does support, several hundred different applications we've done on the clinical side. Most of the EMRs that you can find on the market we've integrated with, and we do have a pretty wide breadth of technology partners and the ecosystem in which we play from different platforms. When we noticed that VDI started becoming more and more prevalent in the market, we heard time and time again from folks that said, you know what, we do get into a virtual desktop of some sort, whether it be, Zen Desktop or just a RDS session. All of our applications reside there and they follow us around all day. So we don't really have such a pressing need for the really wide, expansive product. If you can just get us in and out of that desktop, we're in good shape. And so that led us to actually kind of break off the procs front-end authentication piece, really streamline the product. So it's basically, a client piece of software and a SQL database talking and tapping in and out of that resource all day long. As more and more applications became LDAP enabled, Active Directory aware, that also took away some of the need for a true single sign-on and managing all these different credentials. So that has been now a long-running 7 or 8 year product, which is really lightweight, very fast, and really affordable with almost no services involved. So that's been good for us in terms of market feedback as well. The multi-factor authentication as well, that was from a different acquisition, and that's a really wide array of different ways to authenticate depending on your needs. These are the list. I think it's expanding to some degree, but that's a current snapshot of what we do. And that really does factor into the fact that there's different needs for different resources and, the level of security required for each. And some may be more convenience oriented, some may be a lot more higher value from a security perspective, and you might want to ratchet up the authentication associated with those resources. So this slide here really is a really high level depiction of what our identity and access management solution covers. So our IAM solution, that's called the Rapid Identity Stack, and that's a little bit different in terms of functionality and utility as compared with our traditional single sign-on application. And so it starts off with ALM, Automated Lifecycle Management. That is really the foundation upon which everything is built. Basically integrates with your source of truth for onboarding and covers everything from initial provisioning of users to movement within the organization to offboarding should that user leave on their own or be told to leave. And so we want to make sure that we don't leave all those doors open when people leave the organization. Password management, as it sounds, that can be approached in a whole different way as well. And single sign-on, you'll see there too, and that could mean different things to different folks. But in this context, we're really dealing more with a federated approach or integrating kind of directly as opposed to just providing credentials, form fill or screen scraping or just direct injection. We're getting more into like a SAML or an OAuth type approach where we're really taking, the security at its core. And when you authenticate to one trusted service within our platform, we can then push that out to the other applications so that you're not challenged individually for each application, but they do remain inherently secure. Governance really just ties all the policies and processes together so that you're able to really do continuous certification, for auditing and attestation, things of that nature. And so really, we do offer, if anybody had any interest in digging more into this, we do offer a pretty in-depth analysis of where you are today in terms of a maturity model along this spectrum. And, it starts off from basically everything's manual, just username, password, no real IAM status at all the way up to you're basically as current as you can possibly be in today's environment. So we'd be happy to discuss at some other time, where your organization may fit on that, and some steps, not necessarily with us or MedTech folks, just things you can do on your own to help work your way up that ladder. So really, we've built no matter which product set, when we're dealing with healthcare, we've designed the whole thing to be an outward spoke from the hub of the user. The clinician is really who we're here to serve. We do have constituents on the IT side, folks that we work with to deploy and manage the solution and whatnot. But really, at the end of the day, we've never forgotten who we're trying to improve the lives of, which is the providers. Trying to make them do their job more seamlessly rather than authenticating and typing passwords and clicking and backing out of screens all day long. We want them to get in and out of their resources as quick as they can so they can spend more time with their patients and less time playing with the workstation. And so there's a whole host of different technologies and functionality associated with what they need to do their jobs. Some may not need everything in here. Some may need just a small subset of that. And really that's kind of our goal, is to try to let folks really maintain that, effectiveness for the healthcare workers to provide what they do best. You can probably explain to me much better than I can to you, what challenges you're facing out in the marketplace. Some of them will ring true. The shift to digital is probably a little bit older, and that most everybody's on an EMR nowadays. And really 10 years ago, maybe more, our technology was pretty integral for making that transition possible, with some of the older school docs, being a little bit reticent to get off of paper and get into the digital side of things. And so offering them up a badge tap instead of having to sign in and out 80 to 100 times a shift was a carrot that we could dangle in front of them to help ease that transition. Everyone has compliance and regulatory issues, and if you weren't a target before all this, nothing like a global pandemic to force organizations to go more remote, have more workers coming in from different access points that they weren't previous to all this, and now you're finding even more of a target on your back in terms of breaches. And that's where sort of the MFA and the more deeper security integration can come into play as well. At this point, I was hoping to introduce my colleague, Eric, who can sort of walk you through. We decided prior to this that we thought the baseline functionality that everybody might want to see would be our exact access product. So that's the clinical workflow solution that we had pioneered with the badge access. So typically the photo ID that your users are using to open doors currently and for their identity can now be leveraged to authenticate to workstations and try to help ease that burden of having to get in and out of things all shift long. So, Eric?
Thanks, Mike. So just for a quick demo of one of our products, this is Exact Access. Just a little description of the background here. This is a VM running Windows 10 configured in a kiosk setup. So I have an auto logged in kiosk account on the back end, and we place this security screen in the front to protect access to that machine. So it helps with the security of the situation, as well as speeding end user access into the system. A few things I want to point out on this screen here is some information that we can place. It's highly configurable so that you can customize it with your colors, with your fonts, logos, icons, things of that nature. It very rarely resembles anything like this when we're done deploying it with our services team. It looks very personalized for the facility. So a few things to point out. You'll notice that there's some information on here. I'm using BG info from sysinternals. I can place some information here. You could put help desk phone numbers, message of the day, anything you would like to set up here you can do. As I said, it is extremely customizable. Another thing to point out is the forgot your password link. This is for if you need to reset your Active Directory password. We do have a tool that's included with Exact Access, self-service password reset, or if you have already a tool in place in your facility, we can link to a URL here, and users can do that from this login screen here. A couple other things, you'll see that there's an icon down here. This shows network connectivity. If for some reason I was to lose connectivity, maybe this is a WOW, and the Wi-Fi was a little flaky, or cable had come unplugged, this would show red and indicate to the users that this system does not have connectivity and that maybe they should move on and find another system that can, so that they can do their work. There's also an indicator here of system is available. If someone was logged into this system behind this privacy shield, then it would display their name here, and you'll see this during the demonstration a little bit later, as well as with that countdown timer, and I'll explain some of those features later. So I have a couple of options from here to log in. I can enter my username and password directly into the boxes here and log in as I normally would. Also, you'll see that I have a badge reader attached, and I can just tap a prox badge to access the system that way. And we also support biometrics, so I could log in with a simple fingerprint swipe, and that would allow me in the system as well. I'm going to start off with a badge tap here, and you're going to see that it entered my username here, but it's asking me for my password, and this is because this is my first tap in of the day, so it wants to verify who I am, make sure that I am who I say I am. So I'm going to have to enter my password, my Active Directory password for the first time of the day here. If I can get focus. And you're going to see that it logs me onto the system. Now, a couple things happened pretty quickly. It actually is configured on this system to auto-launch the EMR and log me in automatically. So you'll see that Nurse Flow was automatically logged into the EMR. I didn't have to select anything. It just automatically did that. That is configurable as well, depending on how you would like to set that for your floors or the workstation. So it can auto-launch programs or not, depending on what the typical workflow is for that. A couple other things I wanted to point out here. You'll see that when I select this, I get a full list of my available applications that I have single sign-on into. I can launch them from here with a simple click. They are also located over here in the Windows tile style, and this is all configurable. So if I wanted to set this up for my more frequently used apps, the end user can do this and customize that to themselves. It's as simple as you're grabbing it and and dragging it over and releasing it. And that what that does is that allows you to customize this. And this, any customizations you do here will follow the end user around to their any station where this software is installed. Another thing to point out is the top here. This is our quick launch toolbar. This is always residing at the top, and it allows users very quick access to their most frequently used applications. This also is customizable, so with a simple click and drag, you can place these quick launches up here. Single click will launch the application. You'll see that it's going to put my credentials in there and log me in. So one of the workflows I wanted to, one more thing. There's also buttons here where I can lock the session or log off the session here. So with a simple click, I can secure my workstation and do some more work, or I can log off if I'm done here. That's effectively the same as tapping my badge that will lock that system. Okay, so a few of the workflow pieces that I wanted to show with this EMR. I am logged in as Nurse Nightingale. What she's going to do is she's going to see a patient. She's going to do some work with them, maybe take their vitals, get them roomed and ready for the physician. You'll see that I'm looking at patient demo 1 and Nurse Flo is here. She's going to do some work in here, get the patient all set up, and then she's going to secure this workstation and get ready for the physician to see the patient. So she would, with a simple tap, we'll lock her workstation. And a couple things I wanted to point out here is you'll see that now it indicates that Nurse Nightingale is in here working on this workstation, and it starts a countdown timer on the back end. So what this countdown timer does, and this is fully configurable, so you can set it as long as or short as you want, but if this goes down to 0, it will close any running apps that are in the background here, and it'll close them gracefully. So if you have an EMR that doesn't like a simple hit the X, it may lock a patient record or do something that you wouldn't want done. We will close that gracefully in the back end. Maybe they have Dragon running. If you just X out of that, it will corrupt the profile, so you definitely don't want that to happen. So we have processes in place on the back end to close those applications gracefully if this does go to 0, or if another user taps over, you don't want them seeing the first user's information, so we will close that first user's applications and log the second user in. So I'm going to come in as Dr. Bob. I'm going to tap my badge now that I've heard that the patient is ready. And you'll see that it logged me automatically in. I'm still in patient demo 1 in the same place in my chart, but now I'm charting under Dr. Bob's name. Our software can work with the EMR capabilities. So if you have next gen, I think they call it a soft login. We work with Epic as well for the Epic Secure Workflow, which is kind of what you saw here. And we can leverage all the functionalities of your EMR. So you may be wondering how difficult it is to roll this out for end users. To register your badge is very straightforward. It's as simple as coming up with an unregistered proximity badge, a quick tap on the reader. You'll notice that the message changed here. It says enter username and password to register the badge. So as an end user, I would just enter my credentials. And that's as simple as that. Now that badge is registered to me. It's very quick and easy for the end user to self-register and get up and going. So now with a simple tap, I'm back in. And that's how hard it is to register a badge. So I also mentioned the biometric logins. You can see this, we do support this. using fingerprint. So if I just do a quick, put my finger down, you're going to see it's going to log in my user here, and I'm able to get in very quickly. And that was a quick overview of our XA product. I will hand that back over to Mike Spencer, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Eric. I hope everybody was able to see a good overview of the product. We have a little time left. Let me check and see if we have any questions for the Identity Automation team. Eric or Mike or MJ, what happens if you forgot your badge at home?
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, we do have those separate ways that you can do log into the product. So we do not want to interfere, especially with a clinical workflow and patient care. So you'll see that this has those username and password fields that you can put in here. So I can simply enter my Active Directory credentials and get in the system that way.
Our users are within healthcare and providers. We never want to have somebody who has legitimate access to the workstation to be locked out. So you can always, if you do forget your badge, you can always manually type that username and password, 80 times during your shift if you want. And you can also have a workflow, if you recall that the enrollment process for the badge was essentially tapping it, typing in your username and password. That will register the badge to you. And so if you want to have a process in place such that, somebody with a forgotten badge goes to HR, security, whomever, they can get a temporary badge for the day. And when they enroll that badge and put in their correct credentials, that new badge will be tied to them for their shift. The old badge at home or in the car, wherever they forgot it, will then be blanked out and deactivated. So if someone does find it, they won't be able to do anything with it unless they have valid credentials. And so, the following day or whenever they do find their old badge, when they re-enroll that, again, username and password, enter, the temporary badge now becomes inert. Their old badge is now tied back to them, and they can just return it to security or whoever the designated resource is on that front. So good question. It does happen from time to time, and you can deal with it really any way that you'd like.
All right, sounds good. So we got a couple more. So during implementation, how much interaction do you typically require working with the EHR vendor?
The EHR vendor, we typically don't deal with. We've done, as I mentioned earlier, most of them in the market to some degree. And there's a few of them, Epic, Meditech, a little bit maybe of NextGen that we have actually had interaction with. Some of them we actually do partner with pretty tightly. And in those scenarios, we can sometimes provide a little bit of a deeper level of integration and provide some functionality specific to the EMR that their customers have been asking for. So as an example, Epic has what they call a MyChart enrollment, where they want patients to enroll online so they can get access to their health record. They can be proactive in reaching out to these folks, and it's really community health initiative. But when they mail that stuff home, invariably they wind up in the trash. They get recycled, and they don't get the enrollment rates that they want. And so, we took that from a discussion about how they'd like to get those numbers up, but they were hesitant to allow people to enroll, in an exam room or when they're with their provider, just because, if they left the room, the provider, when they're done with that enrollment, I'm now single signed into that machine as the doctor, which is a very bad situation. If your patient is in a clinical machine with all the rights and privileges that a doctor has, they can just go look at other people's charts, and all sorts of bad things can happen. So we decided to jointly, create a secure desktop that is really truly designed for the patients to enroll themselves in that the MyChart portal. It's a web-based, so whenever that gets invoked, we bring it forward in a secure desktop. Everything else behind that gets locked down. They can't hit back. They can't hit Alt-Tab. They can't do anything except do that enrollment, and then they get kicked out to a privacy shield where they need valid credentials to do anything beyond that. So things like that, we do work with a few of the EMRs, but by and large, we've done several hundred applications, a dozen or two EMRs, and there's only a handful that we actually do need interaction with. So we can do most of what we need to on our own.
All right, very good. Can I use the exact access in kiosk mode?
Yes. And I don't know the extent to which the folks here on the call are using. We usually see that in an exam room where the machines are logged in with an underlying Windows account that's generic. We'll call it exam room A. And so what we do is allow that to continue because we don't want to necessarily wait for a full Windows login to cycle between users every time they switch on a machine. And so it's just faster, simply put, to have a generically signed in machine, but then we're accessing the EMR and the resources based on the badged in user, not the underlying Windows account. And so that's what we call kiosk mode, and it's far and away what people tend to do in an exam room type workflow. Where you're in an office and it's a provider's own machine, doctor's office, and there's a door, there's different physical safeguards that will raise the security profile there, and you're not cycling people in and out. That's pretty much a dedicated machine that we'll call standard mode, and we'll log the user in and out of Windows explicitly as themselves. But that's again a different workflow, which being in healthcare, we try to tailor to match with the needs of the organization.
All right, sounds good. So we have one more question. Can you show a picture of the device and card? Is that something you guys would have? Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, I think I have one here in my bag. If I can.
Here, while you're doing that, Mike, let me see. Or there you go.
Yeah, Matt, can you see that? It's basically a USB cable device about the size of a deck of cards, but a little bit thinner, a little more narrow. And that's what is used for people to plug into the workstation and use their Prox card. The Prox cards themselves, I don't have one handy, but it's typically the photo ID that doctors and nurses have, which they need to reference who they are when they're on site working. And so, to the extent those can open doors, currently that's the RFID portion of it. We can use those exact badges to transition to the workstation access. We typically don't want to have, we don't want to be asking doctors and nurses to carry another thing if we don't have to.
Sure. Can you use IAM in real-time logins both on the same computer at the same time?
That's an interesting question. Meaning like rapid identity and exact access?
I think so. That's the only part of that question.
Yeah.
And Mike, we do support that.
Okay.
Through the IAM login, you'll see typically for ALM, you'll see a portal that we have, and that's generally for web apps that support SAML, OAuth, things of that nature. And you can hit that portal in conjunction with exact access, which has more robust workflows specifically for healthcare. So they could coexist though.
Okay. How does this work with passwords that expire at different times?
Another good question. Eric, do you want to take that? I can do it at a high level.
So we recognize password change screens on applications, and we can trigger workflow to recapture those new credentials when the user changes them. It will capture those, put them in our secure database, and then we will use those new credentials from that point on.
Yeah, so a lot of times what will happen in that scenario is the application will expire, its password, but the password that we have associated with that application has then expired too. And so when you update the new password and change that, then we'll go ahead and update that in our system, and then they'll be back in sync moving forward. depending on the applications too. I know, we can kind of intercept that and take care of it for the users, and make it some crazy long, password that they never even know. The obvious caveat to that would be make sure it's not an application they need to access outside of our system, because they'll never know that password. But yeah, there are different options depending on the application, the parameters with the passwords, etc.
Okay, sounds good. I think the other question there was cost, and I think what you'll see there is that we have a very affordable annual license fee, and then the only thing I wouldn't want to just we don't really have a set amount as far as the implementation, because it really depends on how many apps. But Mac, what we would love to do is have the opportunity to talk to you more about the solution we showed you today, and once we have a better scope of work, as far as, because it is different for every organization, we'd happy to put together some pricing for you and kind of disclose what all that would look like. I think that's all the questions. If nobody else has anything, I know we're let you guys get a little bit extra time in your day here, but we really appreciate you joining the call today. I hope you found this was informative. I know one thing that I know the folks kind of joke about is that once providers and staff use this, they'll tell you that you're not going to get my badge from me over my cold dead hands. So they love this product, and it really simplifies the way they log in and out of the system. And yeah, don't try to take their badges away. So I think if you're having concerns with users with logins and passwords and looking for a solution to help secure your network, please let us know. And also, there's the whole family of additional identity automation management tools we would be excited to show you. So we appreciate your time. Thanks again. And everybody have a great rest of the day.